Ethan thought the letter was a mistake. He read it once, then again. Your lease will not be renewed. You have 30 days to vacate. He sat on the edge of his bed, the paper feeling heavy in his hands, far heavier than it should. He was 59 years old. No partner, no backup plan. Just him. Outside his window, cars drove by, people laughed, and the world just kept on moving. But inside his small room, Ethan whispered to himself, "Where am I supposed to go?" This crisis didn't just happen overnight. It was the result of years of silence. For as long as he could remember, Ethan avoided conflict. When his hours were cut at work, he didn't complain. When his rent went up, again and again, he just paid it without a word. When younger, faster workers were hired to replace people like him, he just smiled and said, "I understand." He had this belief that being quiet, being agreeable, made him safe. But he was learning the hard way that silence doesn't protect you. It just slowly erases you. And now, life had given him an unavoidable deadline. 30 days. He went down to the local housing office, hoping for some kind of help. The woman behind the desk barely looked up from her computer. She fired off questions in a clipped, hurried tone. Age, income, savings. As he answered each one, he watched her expression shift from indifferent to dismissive. She slid the form back across the desk toward him. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice flat. "There's nothing available for you." Ethan just stood there, holding that useless piece of paper. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even scared anymore. He was just ashamed. And for the very first time, he understood a painful, soul-crushing truth. If he disappeared tomorrow, not a single system, not a single person in an office like this would even notice he was gone. If you have ever felt invisible, like you've been discarded or forgotten by the world, I want you to do something powerful right now. Type, "I'm still here" in the comments below. Let's show each other that we are not alone in this feeling. That night, Ethan didn't pray for a miracle. He didn't ask for money or a new home to magically appear. He prayed for understanding. He needed to know how he had ended up here. And in the quiet of his room, the truth arrived. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, devastating clarity. He hadn't lost his life all at once in some sudden catastrophe. He had been giving it away, piece by piece, for years. Every single time he dodged a difficult conversation, every time he settled for less than he deserved, every time he apologized just for taking up space in the world. He realized something that stung deep down. He had been waiting his entire life for someone to give him permission to matter. And it was never, ever going to come. The next morning, the sun rose, and no miracle had occurred. The eviction notice was still on his table. But something inside Ethan had shifted. He made one single decision. I will stop living like I'm temporary. That was it. That was the start. And that day, he began to move through the world differently. He started speaking differently. Instead of apologizing for everything, he started asking questions. Instead of rushing to get out of everyone's way, he took his time. When people tried to push past him or ignore him, he stood his ground, still and firm. It felt incredibly uncomfortable. It was awkward. It was scary. But for the first time in a long, long time, it felt honest. Now, not everyone appreciated this new Ethan. His change in demeanor wasn't met with applause. In fact, one potential opportunity he was exploring suddenly vanished. One door he thought might open for him slammed shut. For a brief, terrifying moment, Ethan felt that old doubt creep back in. Maybe being quiet really was safer. Maybe he had made a huge mistake. But then, something happened. He was at a small, local marina, just looking for any kind of work. A property owner who was there watched him. He saw how Ethan carried himself, how he spoke, how he worked without complaining or making excuses. The man walked over to him and said something that changed everything. "You don't beg," he said. "You just show up." It wasn't an act of charity. It wasn't some grand rescue. It was recognition. It was one person seeing the value in another. The man offered him a temporary room in exchange for work. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it was a chance. It was a foothold. If you know someone who feels like they are just one problem, one setback away from losing everything, please share this video with them. Sometimes a story is the lifeline they need. In the end, Ethan didn't get rich. He didn't find some magical key to an easy life. What he found was something far more valuable. He became grounded. He learned to speak up before resentment had a chance to build inside him. He learned to make plans instead of just passively hoping for the best. And he learned to take responsibility for his life without being crippled by shame. Those 30 days didn't end his life. They were the beginning of it. They woke him up. Your life, my life. It doesn't usually collapse all at once in a dramatic explosion. It collapses quietly, piece by piece, decision by decision. It erodes slowly, under the weight of all the things we've done to say and all the actions we've done to take. Until one day, it demands our full, undivided attention. So if you're watching this right now and you're avoiding those hard conversations, if you're hoping your problems will just fix themselves, if you keep telling yourself, "It's fine," when you know deep down that it's not, please hear this. This is your warning. Don't wait for the eviction notice. Don't wait for the crisis. Start now. Start speaking. Start acting. Start before life forces you to. Subscribe for more real stories with real lessons. Because sometimes the most important lesson is the one that comes right before the miracle. Thanks for watching.